Initializing host playback.
Welcome to MRP, the Metal Robot Podcast, a podcast about all things metal and everything in between. It's a new year, a new season, and that means some new bullshit we're trying out. The YouTube viewers definitely know what I'm talking about with that one. We've got video, and that means that hopefully it'll stick around. If it doesn't, I will lose my shit. Coming up in a few short moments, Collin Sterling of Thrashers Paradise is back to talk Q2 of 2023, plus Legendarium sits down to talk about evolving their power metal sound. In the Metal News Recap, a Slipknot show in Australia got a little too crazy, and will Rage Against the Machine reunite? Even Morello doesn't know the answer to that one. But coming up in a few short moments, probably the most all-over-the-place roster of styles from this week's new releases. All this and so much more, so let's not waste much more time and let's get into the show. I'm Tom McKay, and this is the Metal Robot Podcast. So first up, let's take a look at the new releases from this past week. These are from the last week of Q1 of 2023, and we're doing something a bit different on the show here compared to 2022. One thing that I'm glad that we're changing up here is we're cutting back on the quantity and focusing more on the quality. So last season, if you were not paying attention, if you didn't notice, we were doing a lot of 4 albums for 12 minutes. That was the goal. This time out, I'm going to cut it back a little bit. We're doing 3 albums in a much shorter time span just to make things easier for me in the writing process. And we're doing the same thing in the new segment you'll see as we move along in the show. Okay, with that out of the way, let's take a look at what we've got first up. Dead End Finland's Victory. So here's the question. Where are these guys from? Can you guess? Because you'll never guess where it's from. I'll tell you right now, the answer is just, it blows your mind right there. Can you guess? That's right. Hogwarts. Okay, so right out of the gate, the sound holds up well with its melodic metal genre tag. Each song goes through the tones of using synths and vocals to give you something to latch onto the entire time. The guitars do it pretty well as well. Many of the riffs, sometimes they'll be giving you a bit more of the melody than they will anything else. Songs like Northern Winds and Wounded and Bleeding set that up for you from the start of the album, and that style continues all the way until the end. Heavy Rain then comes on afterwards and shows a slightly darker side while still keeping somewhat consistent and cohesive to the rest of the album. It's almost like if your nerdy friend who likes a lot of Taylor Swift pulls out a Pop Evil song somewhere in their playlist. Okay, maybe not to that extreme. It's a fairly solid combination nonetheless, though emphasis, of course, is on the melody that keeps shining through on this album. The one thing about most Scandinavian bands I do enjoy, melody is usually the focal point for a lot of the song styles, no matter what genre they're from. No matter how heavy the album gets as well, it always ensures you have just a little bit of ear candy to keep you engaged. Though I'll admit I'm running through this album wondering when they're going to start giving us a different synth tone or better drum production. Maybe it's just me, but the drums sound fake as shit. Either that or they're severely underpowered. The power's essentially taken out of the drums. If they are real, then yeah, production's not gonna help them here. And I think that's really the biggest issue that I'm gonna have here with this album. You see, compositionally, they're doing fine. For the melodic metal genre, they're doing okay. But aside from a different melody here and there from every single song, they all sound more or less the same with no real distinction between them. That in turn causes the album to drag on a bit, or just kind of fade into the ether of the background, which sucks because you start to really notice that about around the halfway point. At that point, though, it's too late and you're just kind of too lethargic to give a shit about what's going on next. Now, don't get me wrong, again, compositionally, this is fine. There is some merit to each song. They're pretty good on their own for the melodic metal genre, infusing a mix of classical music with a bit of a death metal tinge. But otherwise, the over-reliance on cohesion and consistency, it just winds up being this album's downfall for me. It's not bad overall, but with an 11 out of 15, I just wish there was more to give here that really punched through rather than just meandered in the okay. That's just me, but let me know what you think.
There's a house in the
Yeah, I said most all over the place in the intro for a fucking reason. Dream Spies out of this world. Welcome to the world of dark electro. Okay, so I'll keep this review pretty short, and I might actually stick with what I've written down here for the most part, because this is not a style that I am very comfortable with reviewing properly, and I'm very familiar with. This is way out of my jurisdiction, and with good reason. But here's what I will say about it, okay? What I will say is that it's almost got a bit of an industrial vibe to it, something that is somewhat familiar to the metal genre, but is just different enough that it's something I'm not comfortable with tackling. Almost like it's a 9 Inch Nails kind of vibe. Maybe. Don't hold me to that. The emphasis is obviously on the electronica sound, but listening through, I can see why maybe a certain breed of metalhead could get into this. Songs like Chosen One and Time to Die are very danceable and groovy, but they also don't shy away too far from the use of heavily distorted guitar riffs. Though of course, part steel, part human is more or less what you would expect from this style, keeping consistent in terms of the style and the vibe, but much more focused on the bare bones of electronic music. But songs like Fire do lean a lot heavier into the more of the metal stuff that you would expect. Fill heavy drum work mixed with the sweet double kick, heavily distorted guitars once again, and that raspy distorted voice. But that said, the rest is still dark electro, whatever the hell that even means. Again, I'm trying very carefully to not be too definitive of this album because it's out of my wheelhouse. I am not an expert on this type of style, but listening through, I kind of liked it. From the perspective of a metalhead, it's almost like if you took the best of what worked with industrial metal, new metal, and alt metal, you took those elements and gave it to a synth nerd like Andrew Huang and said, make something. Yeah, chances are this is the result that you would get. Though obviously, I'm sure I don't need to point this out. If electronic music is the last thing you want to hear, well, actually, you're not even going to be listening to this part anyways, because you're probably skipping ahead the second you heard the song playing. But yeah, die-hard, old-school metalheads who are sworn to Scorpions, Iron Maiden, and the like, you're going to avoid this fucker like it's the fucking plague, and that is fine. Overall, it's not bad. Again, I don't have a real informed opinion on the subject because this is not a style I'm familiar with, but with a solid 12 out of 15, hey, it'll suffice. If this is something that kind of piques your interest, or if you want to form your own opinion, definitely check it out to see if it may be your cup of tea. Necronomicon Ex Mortis and their self-titled debut EP. Now, hearing the name, I can already guess you're thinking one of two things. Either, hey, I like H.P. Lovecraft too, or dude, Necronomicon is already a band. And you'd be right on both. But let me add some more confusion to this, okay? Let me add some more confusion here. So, this band, Necronomicon Ex Mortis, is horror-inspired, much like H.P. Lovecraft is horror. And, on top of that, they're an old-school death metal band, much like the original Necronomicon, who is still active, by the way. Awkward, but the funny thing about these guys, A, they're American, not Canadian. The sound of America. And B, these guys went to fucking Berkeley. Yeah, you wouldn't know that really listening to this EP. This is old school death metal of the purest form. And that means any of the music theory Berkeley shit that all the hip jazz musicians use basically is thrown out the window for this. Yeah, great use of that college education, fellas. Okay, I'm over-exaggerating a little bit. That education might have actually come into play here. While it's very obviously old-school American death metal in the purest of all forms, the way these songs are composed show at least a hint of people who do know what they're doing in terms of song composition. The riffs are dirty, yet the chaos is controlled. It is not just chaos for the sake of chaos. Also, the solos, while they have a hint of improvisation, they also feel naturally planned to work with the rest of the band. The drums are definitely on par with the classics, keeping up with the fast hits and the blast beats, but Also shifting time signatures so smoothly, so fluidly, there's no way it was by accident. And the vocals, well, okay, the vocals are not doing really anything that you haven't heard before, but then again, I think that might actually be a good thing here. Think about it. With old school death metal, you don't want anything that's too clean or too polished because that just kind of would clash with the rest. So yeah, that kind of leaves you with only really one option to try out an audition for a Halls commercial. And hey, I'm not complaining. It works pretty good here. So all in all, Necronomicon Ex Mortis' debut EP, in many ways, it proves itself to be one of the most interesting case studies that I think I've heard in the modern era in the metal genre when it comes to what they're doing here. What happens if old school death metal bands like Death and Cannibal Corpse had the skills, prowess, and technical ability of bands like Dying Fetus and Dillinger Escape Plan? This is the result that you would get, 100%. In many ways, it's something that is even more reminiscent of the old school death metal era. Well, it's easy to think of bands like 6 Feet Under and Cannibal Corpse when talking about old school death metal. We seem to forget that the musicianship that always existed was attached to it. The skill and talent that was always there was rife. I mean, just look at bands like Death or even Undeath, and it can show you just how awesome and talented these musicians can get. So overall, 14 out of 15. Honest to God, I don't have anything really bad to say here. Go check it out. I can't wait to hear what these guys come out with next. But of course, that's just my opinion of these albums, and I would love to know what you think of them. What do you think of these albums? Let me know.
You're listening to MRP, the Metal Robot Podcast.
So anyways, since we are now getting into quarter 2 of 2023, I figured now would be a good time to start looking forward and giving a bit of a forecast as to what we're about to see over the next few months of this year. And to help with this cause, I broke into Collin Sterling of Thrashers Paradise House and basically told him to play along with this entire bit or I would fuck his futon. It's oddly not the oddest request I've had for him. And you know what? Give him due credit. He played along like a champ. So here we go. This is the Lord of the Flash. So here we go. Let's talk with the Lord of Thrashers Paradise, Collin Sterling, on the Metal Robot Podcast. Collin, once again, I am back in person with you. A second time on the podcast.
I know. Welcome to my basement. I hope it's comfy enough for you.
It's really comfy, man. I got to tell you, the couch is beautiful. I love it.
Okay, weird thing to say about my couch, but whatever, man.
The couch is beautiful, Collin.
Dude, we're on the dining room table. Just take it easy on my couch.
Yeah.
It's a futon, man.
Hey, you know what?
Nothing to write home about.
Hey, you know what? I'm a simple man. I see a futon.
Speaking
I
of
like it.
Simple man. You did bring me on to talk about albums from this year so far. I am going to be upfront and honest with you, Tom.
What's that?
I've heard none of them.
I'll be honest, I haven't heard a lot either. There's only so much that can really be talked about in terms of quarter 1.
Yeah.
Like there were, that's the weird thing, Collin. There were some big names that did release a couple things.
Oh, wait, I did listen to one.
Which one's that?
The new Galnarius album.
Mm-hmm.
That Japanese power metal band I do like. Give me a second. I'll pull up the album title for you.
Yes, but there was a couple others as well. I saw, when I was looking at the names, I saw Korn release something. I think Pop Evil, but no one really cares about Pop Evil. Who else?
Nanowar Steel released something.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't sat down. I've heard songs off of it,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't sat down and listened to the entire album.
Yeah.
Yet.
Wait, it's coming. Insomnium released something as well.
Really?
Yeah, I have not heard that either. There's a lot of things I did not hear.
Okay, the Galnarius album is called Between Dread and Valor.
Between Dread and Valor. So yeah, I'll be checking that one out afterwards because I love Nanowar Steel. Galnarius, sorry. Nanowar Steel as well, but yeah, both are really good.
Yes, no, they are. They are both truly entertaining bands.
They're both entertaining bands. So that, yeah, essentially like this was going to be a recap of quarter 1 of 2023, but yeah, we haven't really heard a lot. And frankly, I'll be honest, not a lot of it is piquing my interest too much. There's a little bit that I do want to check out at some point, but honestly, like a lot of it is just like, it's almost as if it just kind of came out and that was it.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't really a lot of hype real estate for it, I don't think.
No, I get what you're saying. And, well, I know Kitchener Thrashers, Invicta are releasing an album at the end of this month, March 30th. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing that. And Raider is coming out with a new album this year.
Yes, and by the time the podcast comes out, the new Invicta album will be out.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's actually on my review list, but I will definitely check it out and maybe do a shorts review, something for Instagram, something for YouTube.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, because that's Invicta's great. I got one of their shirts. Of course, I'm going to check them out. So it's kind of a requirement at that point. So quarter one, it is what it is. What are we seeing coming up in quarter two, though, that is piquing our interest? Or at least, whether good or bad, which ones are we seeing that we're going to be thinking, that's interesting? Raider, of course.
That's all I know off of heart right now. I've been very busy, Tom.
Yeah.
I've been very busy with life.
Life, yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure what all is coming out. I hope you have a couple of things to say about what out bands are releasing something in quarter two.
Okay, so there's a couple I know. Like, first of all, anything I've got set up for review, I'm excited for. Powerwolf is going to be releasing one next week. Yeah.
An album?
Yes.
Wait,
I think.
What kind of album?
I need to pull up my phone for it, but I have it listed. I have it set up for a review.
Is it a live album or is it a full length?
I think it's a full length. I'm going to have to
They're releasing another new album?
I think so, yeah. I've not heard too much hype about it, but
no. Well, they've been
not hype. It's like I have not seen the marketing for it. But all I know is
not even that. Just they've been on tour right now of America.
Yeah.
So they've been pretty busy with other stuff.
Well, in that case, let me double check that right now. I'm just pulling up the Wikipedia page for that. But Powerwolf is coming out with something that was set up. Metallica as well has something coming out.
Metallica's releasing something?
Yeah. Have you been hearing any of the new stuff?
No. There is new stuff?
Yeah, and as expected, Metallica fans be Metallica fans, and they're just
anything after the first 4 albums isn't good.
Basically, if it's not making them cream themselves, they're not interested.
Okay.
So let me just scroll down to it. Find Powerwolf. I saw it in here. It's Powerwolf. Yeah. So Powerwolf. It doesn't say if it's an EP or anything. It says Interludium is a new album from Powerwolf. It's coming out next week.
I'll believe it.
Okay. What else is coming? I'm just looking here.
But I am very excited. I'm a big Powerwolf guy.
Oh, like you introduced me to Powerwolf.
Yeah. I love Powerwolf. So
I love Powerwolf.
If they're releasing something new, I'll definitely listen the hell out of it.
Yeah.
You know of or are physically aware of in this form.
So I'm looking just I saw somebody Pedro from A&P Reacts post a joke about this one. Iced Earth is coming out with an EP.
What?
Yeah.
They're still a band?
Yeah. So I remember this because Pedro made the joke on Facebook. He's like, the EP is called I Walk Among You, which is a little on the nose there, Schaefer. A little on the nose. But Pedro,
is Schaefer still in the band?
I mean, I think he is the band, honestly. There's no way you can have Iced Earth without Schaefer. But I love the joke that Pedro made.
Really?
I'm misquoting here heavily, but it was basically to sum it up. The joke was the album is called I Walk Among You, ... with an ankle monitor was taken out of the title.
I will not be listening to new Iced Earth.
Honestly, I was never into Iced Earth to begin with.
I mean, same here. I mean, for me, Horror Show Show was a great album. That's it. Yeah.
Aside from that, like, is there really anything from Iced Earth aside from that's worth checking out? I mean, let's be honest here. If we're looking at anything that Schaefer was a part of, like Demons and Wizards, would people listen to, like, Demons and Wizards was probably the best thing that Schaefer was doing, but that's about it. And like Iced Earth is, I guess, okay for power metal. They got big for a reason.
They're not our cup of tea.
Exactly. But it's also like, that's the weird thing is like with Demons and Wizards, if we're looking at some great power metal stuff, like Blind Guardian is a big, you've got to love power metal.
Their new album is amazing.
Their new album is amazing. Absolutely.
Is it The God Machine?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. That album is really good. I heard it recently. Again, amazing. That's the second time around.
Absolutely, yeah.
Such a good comeback album for Blind Guardian because they hadn't released anything for a while.
Oh, 100%. And especially, like, if we're not going to get another Demons and Wizards album, Demons and Wizards fans are going to get a kick out of Blind Guardian, I think. In terms of quarter two, like, there's still more albums. I'm scrolling through the list here. The Acacia Strain is releasing 2 albums by the looks of it.
Okay.
The Acacia Strain's cool.
Yeah.
They're like pretty good metalcore.
Yeah.
The Amity Affliction, I'm not excited for. No.
Never heard of them.
Here's what I thought was really funny. So Cattle Decapitation is coming out with a new album.
Okay.
Terracite.
Oh.
So here's what I know about this. Okay, obviously Cattle Decapitation, it's what you're gonna expect, but they've been making the rounds recently because the album cover is like people were making the comparison of like the main figure, the main subject of the album cover. They were comparing it to A Bug's Life.
Like the Disney movie.
Yeah. And so like Cattle Decapitation just leaned into it. They have merch based around that too. I gotta pull it up and show you. It's so fucking funny. Just how much they're leaning into it, how much they're just loving the joke of, hey, new Cattle Decapitation, A Bug's Life near you. It's so fucking funny. Devil Driver.
They're still around.
They're somehow. I don't know how.
Wow, that's a band name I haven't heard once in a dog year.
Well, what do you think of Devil Driver when you were listening?
I think I like their music, but
I've been like,
I didn't realize they still release stuff.
Yeah, I know there's like, okay, they have a rabid fan base.
Oh, wait. They did release something.
They've been releasing albums still for a while.
A year or two ago.
Yeah.
I know the cover of it. It's like the Grim Reaper. It's brightly colored and all that stuff. I haven't heard it yet.
Yeah.
Winter Kills I love.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of Fury of... I'm drawing blanks.
You're drawing,
album titles by
That's okay.
Devil Driver. But no, they were one of the first metal bands I really got hardcore into.
Oh, no kidding, huh?
Them, Trivium.
They have a pretty hardcore fan base, and understandably so. They're really good melodic death metal, and especially with a pretty good nu metal vocalist at the front.
Yeah.
Because like the guy was from Cold Chamber. Hello?
Yeah.
It's pretty good stuff. I personally never got that far into them, mostly because maybe it's just me. I heard better melodic death metal elsewhere. And these guys are good, but it's like, I don't know. They're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. It kind of gets old for me. Sleep Token.
That's quite a name.
They have Sleep Token. They have an Sleep
Token or Token?
Token. You never heard of these guys?
No.
Sleep Token. They have a new album coming out on the 19th of May.
That is a stoner band, right?
Definitely a stoner band, yeah.
Okay, because they sound like...
There's a couple others. It looks like... I'm currently in May right now, by the way. On the 26th, we're seeing Immortal.
Yo, I'm definitely going to check that fucking thing.
Yep.
I love Immortal.
Norwegian black metal band. They're releasing the new album is War Against All. They're releasing it May 26th. There's a couple others here. I don't recognize many of these names, but maybe you know some of them. Legion of the Damned.
Nope.
Magnus Rosenband.
Nope.
Metal Church.
Yeah, they're an older band.
They got an album that day too. Congregation of Annihilation.
Okay.
Serenia. Trespass.
No.
So that's basically May. I'm not seeing a whole lot. I do see Veil of Maya in May as well.
Oh, wow.
Another one is still around. And this one I'm kind of curious about. Botanist. There is sort of like, they're another black metal project, but it's like a bit more acoustic based. So it's black metal, but without the distortion. It sounds pretty good. At least that's the best way I can describe the debut album.
I will want to hear that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the sound they're going with for the new album. I think they may have changed their sound a bit, but that was the sound I was hearing with the debut.
Okay.
So yeah, there's that. This is interesting. What? Def Leppard with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra.
Oh, dear God. Let's just end this segment right here.
Really. Yeah. End it right on that one. But that's Def Leppard.
We're done. We're done.
We do have one more month.
Okay, June. Yeah, forgot.
June. So June. This is what we were talking about this. We were talking about this on the road here earlier. But Avenged Sevenfold is releasing an album June 2nd. You have no plans. I've already, if you followed the YouTube channel, you already know I did a reaction for the first single, Nobody.
Yeah.
And my first thoughts, I dived into a bit of like, it's weird, but I'm curious to see where it's going to go. Yeah. But what I didn't dive into with that one, and this is something that I think you and I can discuss here, is like, this is giving me massive, like whiplash to the time when the stage came out.
Okay.
Not in terms of the sound, but in terms of like how it felt listening to it. Because keep in mind, Avenged Sevenfold is my immediate gateway band. The Avenged Sevenfold was the band, aside from, of course, 3 Days Grace. Avenged Sevenfold was the band that got me into metal.
Yeah.
So I knew most of their discography before the stage was even announced. And it took me a while to sit with the single before the album came out.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when the album came out, it became like my favorite album from that year. But it took time to really get into it. And I think that was kind of the point. Here, I'm getting that effect again with this new single, but I think it's more potent this time around, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I am curious to see how the album's going to go, but I'm a little worried.
Okay, that's fair to be worried. It's your favorite, one of your favorite bands.
Yeah.
They're a band that have a special place in your heart. And
well, not only that, but it's also like...
So I can understand your standards being a bit higher for them.
Well, not only that, but it's again like the same feeling of like what I was getting with the stage. This time it's a bit different because this, with the song Nobody, I know you haven't heard it, Collin.
Nope.
You don't plan to.
Nope.
But the song, it sounds so different from Avenged Sevenfold. At least, like, no matter how many times they change their sound.
Yeah.
Okay? There's consistency of some kind. You could play any song from them and you will recognize it in some form.
Yeah, of course.
This time, it's really hard to pin this as an Avenged Sevenfold song. And that reminds me quite a bit of Hail to the King.
Oh, dear God.
Not in terms of this, God, no, not in terms of the sound, but the fact that Avenged Sevenfold's Hail to the King sounded the least like an Avenged Sevenfold album compared to everything else. And now I'm getting that same feeling again. So I'm concerned, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
For the new album. I gotta be. I'm an Avenged Sevenfold devotee. I gotta be.
Yeah.
So that aside, that is the only thing that's really like, I know that there's this one, the album wasn't officially announced, but Vintersea is coming out with something. I showed you one of their songs. I can't remember like how much of their discography you actually went into afterwards, but they're like they're a Portland, Oregon band. I got to get them on the show at some point.
Yeah, why not? Go
yeah,
for it.
Their guitarist follows me on social media, so I gotta get in touch and be like, hey guys, come on the show.
Yeah.
But those guys, like, they released a new single recently, and it's like, if you like blackened death metal, melodic metal, oh my God, get into that song. I can't wait for that new album.
Is that good?
It's really good.
Okay.
I don't know when it's coming out, when the new album's coming out. They haven't announced that yet, but I'm excited to hear that.
I'll take your word for it.
Why is this one? I'm just looking at the list right now. Same day as Avenged Sevenfold, Buck Cherry.
Oh my. I feel old.
I feel old.
Why? There's
Country road. Yeah.
How?
Good question. I don't know.
Oh my God. How?
That is a question for the ages. I don't know how
we
we're
have
still
to review it together.
Yes.
Let's
oh
do
my
it.
God.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we're doing it. We'll do it.
We'll do a live stream.
We're doing a live stream.
You can hold me to it. I will sit down for a live stream of the album with you on the day I am off.
That would be something for sure.
Jesus.
What's the same day? I don't know if you might know these guys. Glory Hammer.
Oh God.
Yeah,
the Unicorn album. Jesus. Yes, I know Glory Hammer.
Return to the Kingdom of Fife is the new album. Same day as Avenged and Buck Cherry.
Wow.
Who else?
What an interesting day for metal.
Yeah, that'll be. I can't wait to schedule that entire episode. Yeah. Godflesh?
The black metal band.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know who
yeah,
Godflesh is.
new
I've
album.
heard of Godflesh.
Yeah, we're still in June. New album's Purge.
Okay.
So that's okay. How much of Godflesh are you familiar with?
I haven't heard Godflesh.
Okay.
I am aware of the band's existence. I just
Okay, this one I'm still we're close to the end of the month here, but
what?
Thy Catafalque. This is a band I've reviewed on the show before. They are experimental prog, kind of like weird out there music. It is.
You're telling me that. Just look at their name.
Yeah. The last two albums were phenomenal. Like 15 out of 15 hands down albums.
Wow.
Yeah, but they are so not for like if your main speed is stuff like maybe System of a Down, Metallica, any of like the mainstream bands, you're going to shit your fucking pants with this band. They are that I see you stand up right now. He's like, I'm getting ready for it.
What?
Yeah. What? Exactly.
What?
Exactly. It's the only way to describe that. There's no other way. But that's basically what we've got coming up. Pure Maze is one I'm excited for too, but it's also like, it's Pure Maze. So based on everything we just talked about, we got a couple minutes here, I think. Immortal.
Were you going to ask me which one am I most interested in?
Like which ones stuck out to you most?
Immortal. I'm not a big black metal guy, but I love Immortal.
Oh, Immortal is going to be that's going to be a big one.
I'm definitely looking forward to some new Immortal.
Yeah, I think Powerwolf is going to be one I'm excited for too. If it comes out. If they delay it, I'm going to lose my shit.
I always love Powerwolf, so I'm always down for some new Powerwolf.
Exactly.
What about you, Tom?
The Avenged Sevenfold one I'm most intrigued by, but I'm mostly just I'm excited for Powerwolf.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Immortal. I really want to know when the new Vintersy's coming out, and I want to see the chaos we can come up with when Buck Cherry releases the album.
Dear God, Buck Cherry.
Oh my God, that is. No. Iced Earth. I'm kind of curious to see what's going to end up happening. I'm not going to listen to it, but I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see what the reactions are going to be like online.
I'll wait to read it on Loudwire or Metal Injection.
We have to see what happens. So, Collin, that's it for this topic. Thank you so much for coming on this episode.
Always a pleasure,
starting up the 2023 season of the Metal Robot Podcast with you. I'm so glad to have you back, man.
I'm so glad to be back, Tom. It's always fun hanging out with you.
So that was our look forward into the next few months of albums for 2023. And I got a question for you. What stuck out the most for you? For good or bad reasons? Why not? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I'll give you a bit of a tease right now, though, before we move on. Me and Collin actually did record another segment while I held him captive in his own basement. We talked about albums that maybe did not gel with us at first, but then we slowly learned to love. These albums grew on us over time. That's coming up in a couple of weeks, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss out. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get straight into this week's biggest news stories in the metal world. This is the Metal Robot Podcast.
Presented by themetalrobot.com. This is MRP News.
Welcome back into the podcast. We are now at the Metal Robot News Desk, and we are here to recap of the biggest... That was going somewhere. I don't know what I was trying to do there, but we're going to recap the biggest news stories of this week. And as mentioned in the intro, we're going to cut things back from the previous season to focus more on the quality than of the quantity. And thank God we're doing that too, because I'm so tired. But you know who's not tired? Whoever the fuck this dude is.
Does anybody here have the end so far that I'm
What the hell am I looking at right now? Okay, so 2 questions right out of the gate. 1, how the hell did you climb up there? And 2, why the hell would you want to climb up there?
Why not first? We've made a stop the show because there's people up in the air. Everybody that's up in a tower needs to get down, or the show will not commence until you're down.
So, funny thing, when I was looking for stories to cover on this week's show for this segment, I saw the headline for the story on Metal Injection, and the first thought that came to my mind was, how the hell did a Slipknot show get too crazy for fucking Slipknot? We're talking about a band, okay, that has set themselves on fire and been hit by their own equipment more times than there are syllables in Spit It Out. Well, actually, there was a good reason for that being the case, because it wasn't necessarily the band, or especially Sid, who was on top of that PA tower. Let's be honest, he would definitely be the one to do that. Guess what? It was actually just some random dude. Yeah, some random dude who, I don't know, I guess just wanted a better view. But the problem with that, as the Metal Injection article rightly pointed out, that dude is one subtle breeze away from being a dummy turned pancake. And if that happens, not only will the dude probably be dead and or dying, but the event organizers and possibly even the band could be found liable if the fans' family decide to sue.
Okay, let's make make sure we don't do that again. The show will commence.
So yeah, it makes complete sense why they would want those guys off the PA tower. It's extremely dangerous for a multitude of different reasons, physically and financially. Because remember, no matter how stupid the stupid get, they'll never be as stupid as the stupid who allows the stupid to happen in the first place.
I can't take you crazy motherfuckers anywhere, man. Jesus Christ.
Okay, so I did mention that I am cutting back on the amount of stories I'm covering, and I definitely am, but I wanted to get this one quick out of the way. Richard Christie, ex-Death Drummer, apparently is drinking rat shit coffee. Okay, so it's a bit more complicated than that, actually. Essentially, instead of simply roasting the coffee beans like a normal person, what civet coffee is essentially feeding the coffee beans to this rat-like animal and allowing them to digest the beans and then fishing the beans out of their feces, out of their shit, and then roasting those beans. The reason being, maybe there is a weird thing that happens in the digestive tract of these animals that gives it a better taste. I don't know. That's what Richard's telling everybody, and I think he's a bit fucking nuts.
You're drinking something that came out of a rat's ass? Seriously? No, I mean, really.
It's the best coffee I've ever had in my life, Howard.
But it's not
silky
coffee,
smooth.
it's shit.
Well, I think they wash it, Robin, I would hope. But
What do you
So
mean?
you wash it becomes coffee? It doesn't become coffee.
Robin, if you eat some coffee beans and shit them out, I would probably drink the coffee from those beans.
What the fuck are you talking about, Christy? Who the fuck drops that into a conversation with anybody that they know? Yeah, you know, dude, I gotta tell you, I would totally drink your shit if you turned it into coffee. That is the kind of statement that is only asked by people who have probably asked weirder requests and weirder things to other people. I know exactly what that's like. Don't worry, Collin, I promise I will not actually fuck your futon. The Power Trip Festival lineup has just been released this past week, and not only is it really small, it's also fucking huge at the same time. So the festival as a whole has 3 nights, and each night has only 2 bands per night. That's it. That is the 6 bands in total. That's the entire lineup for the entire festival time. But given the fact that there are some heavy hitters involved, yeah, I'm not surprised that these guys were just looking at their lineup going, GNR, Iron Maiden, AC/DC, Ozzy Osbourne, Metallica, and Tool? Yeah, that's all we fucking need. And you know what? They're definitely right. Now, tickets at the current moment will set you back just under $600 for all 3 nights, and that's just to attend the festival. There's other stuff, of course, that you could pay for, but still, with under $600 for 3 nights, that's a fucking steal if you think about it. First off, just that fucking lineup. But also, the fact that AC/DC and Ozzy Osbourne are returning to the stage on the same night, yeah, that will sweeten the deal 100%. So yeah, I mean, if you're in town or you plan on traveling to the Coachella site this October, now you could definitely take a look at this lineup and see what you're working with, and you can definitely decide from that point forward if it's worth it or if it's definitely worth it. And finally, the fate of Rage Against the Machine's touring days is currently up in the air. And even Tom Morello doesn't know the answer to whether it'll change. So okay, quick recap. Rage Against the Machine kicked off their reunion tour last summer with, a hell of a thud. The first day of the show, first show, trouble started rearing its head with Zach De La Rocca tearing his ACL on stage in Chicago. They then had to cancel their European tours just in case of any issues, also to give Zach enough time for some physical therapy. But problem, turns out the injury was worse than they originally thought. So they actually had to cancel the rest of their North American tour as well. Now, since then, things have been pretty quiet on the band's part. They haven't really been saying anything. And at this point, it is unclear if things were getting better or worse for the band, and especially for Zach De La Rocca. That silence didn't quite help the band, though, as they were then nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, as apparently being quiet when you're possibly getting nominated for this particular thing is something that somehow people still care about. But recently, that silence was broken in an interview with Rolling Stone magazine where Tom Morello confirmed that, hey, your guess as to what's going on is as good as mine. But basically, he's of the mindset of, even though I don't exactly know what's going to happen in the future, there's definitely not going to be anything coming up pretty soon. Quote, we'll see. If there is to be any more shows, we will announce it as a band. I don't know. I know as much as you do, honestly. Right now, we're in a time of healing. I'm in a time of making music and doing a bunch of stuff. Now, to be clear though, Morello did want to hammer home the point that Rage is not on hiatus. They are not on hiatus. But of course, any shows that were going to happen, they're not going to be happening anymore, at least not within the foreseeable future. But hopefully we'll hear something soon. Although, much like many of the Rage Against the Machine fans, I'm not holding my breath on that one. And that, of course, wraps it up for our Metal News Recap. What are your thoughts on the stories that we just covered? Is there anything we may have missed from this week? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you.
You're listening to MRP, the Metal Robot Podcast.
All right, let's move on. That sound that you're hearing right now is the sound of our next and final special guest for tonight's show, coming all the way from the Netherlands. I'm talking, of course, about the power metal duo named Legendarium, the two-piece project featuring Laurence of the Netherlands and drummer Stefano Vaccari from Italy. Their latest album is Death's Hand in Yours and sees a noticeable shift within the band's sound. Of course, aside from the obvious change with bringing in death metal influences to a power metal project, this album has a lot of weird stuff that they brought into it, that they kind of just jam-packed into this album. And I want to hear more about what the decision-making was behind that, in terms of making the sound much more experimental than before. So to talk about all this and so much more, I'm happy to welcome the figurehead of this project, Laurence on the Metal Robot Podcast. What I want to do to start off this interview, especially when it comes to new guests that I've not had on the show before, is to introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what the project Legendarium is.
My name is Laurence Gerboff. I'm from the Netherlands, and the band Legendarium is basically a project I started when I was 17, back in 2017. Originally, I was just a guitarist, but over time, I also learned to sing and play bass because I really wanted to make my own music. But I live in a very small town, remote area, so it's really hard to find bandmates. So I couldn't find a bassist, couldn't find a drummer. So I learned myself bass. I learned how to sing, so I could do bass, vocals, and guitar myself. And then I just needed a drummer. So then I went on Reddit and I asked around for drummers, and I came across Stefano, who lives in Italy, and he's a drummer. He's been drumming since before I was born. He's been in a prog rock band for 20 years now, where he drums, and he said he would be willing to record drums remotely for the first EP I did, and that was 5 years ago now, and he's still I'm still working with him now, so that's kind of how the band started.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting that that just being able to not being able to find the other members of the group, and then being able to find Stefano. What was the notion that you had to find a drummer, especially given in this day and age where people can program drums? Was it that important to find somebody to actually perform live drums for the album?
I think for the kind of music I make, it's really important that it is real drums, because there's obviously a lot of good music that has programmed drums, and I'm not saying that programmed drums are automatically bad. I mean,
right.
Typo Negative, Sisters of Mercy, all great bands that all have programmed drums. But for the stuff I want to make, I really wanted an organic sound, and I really wanted the real drums. And it's also if I program drums, I'd have to program them myself, and I'm not a drummer, so I don't really know much about drums. And with stuff like Stefano, the stuff Stefano is doing, Like if I make a song, I write the song and I program some drums in so that he has kind of an idea of what I want. And then when I get the drums back from him, he has added all these kind of amazing fills and change-ups and things that I would have never come up with. So having like a real professional drummer really adds another layer of musicianship, actually.
There's definitely a benefit to having a second music mastermind behind the kit, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And it also makes it so that, you kind of get more different approaches. Like one of the things I have now is because I play all the guitar parts and I play all the bass parts and I do basically everything. You kind of get like the same voice and everything, if that makes sense. Like I'll do the same kind of things on the bass that I do on guitar, and it sounds a bit. It can sound a bit too similar. So it's nice to have another person there with another creative mind and another look on things, who can also give his input.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there's definitely a huge benefit to having somebody being part of the band rather than just having to program everything. And this is coming from someone who has done it before, where he's had to create every aspect of his music. So I definitely think there is a huge benefit to having a second mastermind in there. But obviously, when it comes to working remotely as two members, rather than getting into like a garage or getting into someone's room and being able to hash out a song, hash out an album in the same room, working remotely is definitely different, especially when it comes to the fact that the two members are separated by an entire continent, or just Germany and Austria, but you know what I mean. What's it like in that case, working remotely? Has there been any challenges to that?
Yeah, there's been some challenges. One of the things that's pretty challenging is you don't really have that organic jamming vibe. Where it's just if you get together with a couple of guys in a room and you just start playing and what feels right and songs come out of that. It's more like I just have to write all the songs, and when it's all done, I program drums for them, and I basically only send like finished songs to him, where like I'll write the whole song and then I'll send it to him and he'll record drums. So it's like. It's not that you don't get like that organic thing like if you're jamming with someone. So that's kind of a challenge. And another challenge is that, well, like I've only talked to him via email, and some musical things are kind of hard to convey through email. Like if you don't, like if you can't explain it with like examples. So it's sometimes kind of hard for him to understand what I want and for me to understand what he means. But so far we've all gotten through it.
So you guys haven't tried doing like a Zoom jam session, or is that not feasible?
Yeah, I've thought about it, but like you also get delays with
yeah, true.
that kind of stuff. So timing will be really weird and really off. So I don't think that's really feasible.
Fair enough.
So.
Yeah, so obviously the two of you still are able to, even though you're separated by such distance and you've only chatted through emails, you've still managed to come out with quite a bit of stuff, which brings us to the new album, Death's Hand in Yours. It'll be the second full length that you've released this year, and possibly even, dare I say it, even the most experimental, with elements of mellow death, punk, some 80s synths in Black Magic Touch of Evil, which is one of the songs off the album, and even a straight up pirate shanty with arcane magics of ancient origins, because why the fuck not? So what caused, since this is the second album from this year, what caused such a change from the melodic power sound of Under the Spell of Destruction from earlier this year to a sound that's so experimental?
Well, one of the things I've always done with the band is the variety. Like in previous albums, there's also like been a lot of variety where it's always like the kind of melodic power metal sound, but sometimes there's just a straightforward punk song. Sometimes there's just a doom metal song, like stuff like that. So I've always tried to make it very varied. But one of the things that really made this one more varied than the rest is that I've actually learned how to do harsh vocals for the first time, which is really one of the things that I really wanted to do, but I had no idea how to do them. But like in the last year, I've started to learn them, and being able to use those really adds another dimension to the music. Like, I think, 4 of the songs on the album also are just completely harsh vocals, and I've tried to make them like a bit more death metal inspired, like metal death inspired, because in the past 2 years I've gotten really into metal death, like bands like In Flames, At the Gates, Children of Bodom, and I really wanted that kind of sound in my music as well. So just adding that whole dimension to more the death metal sound and the harsh vocals really added even more variety. And then what also helped is that for this album, I really try to make it as varied as possible. Like, I have a lot of weird interests and I like this kind of music. And for the previous albums, I've always tried to make it like really as cohesive as possible within that. But for this album, I just said, fuck it. I want to do everything I want to do. I don't care if the album ends up all over the place. I just want to put as many different sounds in as possible.
Just throw everything but the kitchen sink at the wall, see what sticks, basically? Is that? Yeah,
exactly. And this is going to sound really weird. And I don't know how this is going to come off, but it kind of gives me the vibe of like the Beatles albums, like Sgt. Pepper's and the White Album, where every single song is just a completely different genre, basically, where it's like somehow it works as an album. And that also kind of inspired me, like, not to say like, oh, the Beatles did it so I can do it, but like it showed to me that it is possible to make a good album where every song just sounds completely different, and that it's not a problem that every song sounds different.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what worked for this album too is that, yes, there was a lot of experimentation, but it still sounded like a Legendarium album. It still kind of had its roots in the core sound that makes Legendarium recognizable in some way. And with this album especially, I feel I might know the answer to this one because it's one of the most different ones on the album. But which song off this album was the hardest song on this album to be able to work on?
I think Arcane Magics was really difficult.
Yeah,
and that one was really, especially the intro.
Mm-hmm.
I had really never done anything like that before, because the intro is really, I tried to really get like a medieval tavern feel, like with the fake tavern noises and stuff, and the all that kind of stuff. So that was really hard to figure out how to get that vibe right, like what instruments to use and all that stuff. And another one that was really hard was Black Magic Touch of Evil, just because it's so many different parts, and it's basically 2 songs that I threw together. And especially Touch of Evil is just a lot of different instruments. I've even got a fucking saxophone solo at the end there, so that was really hard as well. Just the songs with a lot of different parts were really hard.
Yeah, that definitely. I almost forgot about the saxophone part. I don't know how I could have forgotten about that. That's
that's actually a funny story how it came about, because I have a friend, an online friend. He is called Jared, and I've known him for quite a while on like Twitter and social media, and I knew he plays saxophone, and he I was basically done with the album. I had everything done. And he put out a tweet like, hey, if anyone wants me to play a saxophone solo on their album, just DM me. We'll make it happen. And I thought, like, I have to take this chance.
Yes.
Right? So I went through the entire album looking for a spot. And, like, the end of Touch of Evil, it was the perfect spot. It was begging for a solo. It was just perfect. So I got into his DMs and we talked on Discord, and like a week later he had recorded saxophone solo and everything was like, it really happened in like a week, 2 weeks. It was amazing.
That's awesome. It just needed it at this point. Like,
yeah, it was so perfect. Like, I had the perfect spot for it, and he was looking to he was looking for an album to play on, so I was like, this is one of those opportunities. I gotta take it. Like if I hadn't taken it, I would have just been fucking kicking myself over. I should have done it.
Should have done this, man. I needed to get a saxophone here, man.
Yeah, and that's like kind of also the mentality behind the whole album. Like it was really like a kind of fuck it mentality, where it was like just doing the things that I thought were cool and not caring what other people might think of it, but just because I wanted to do it, because I thought it would be cool, like the saxophone solo and the medieval stuff at the start of Arcane Magic and stuff.
With the project of Legendarium on this album moving in such a direction that we've arguably never really seen you do before, while still maintaining a hint of that familiar territory, what's up next for this project? What is in the future for Legendarium?
I think in the future it's probably going to be just keep going, just keep making music, keep doing and keep expanding the profile of the band, just making better and make it better and better. I think everyone who's listened to Legendarium would agree every album is better than the one that came before it, and I want to keep it going. I'm thinking of the next album, what I want to do, and what I think I want to do is make it a bit more cohesive, make it a bit more one sound, because what this album has, it has four songs that are really death metal inspired, and then 6 songs that are really just classic Legendarium, and I want to kind of melt that together, where you have like songs with harsh vocals and clean vocals, and really make it make all the different sounds I use, make it come together more. Just incorporate it in a way where it just makes sense and it just becomes one cohesive thing.
Yeah, I think that can happen possibly in the future based on what I heard from this album. So one final question for you before we go, and it's the most important question I always ask everybody. If you could be any cereal box character or cereal box mascot, who would you be?
I'm gonna have to I'm gonna say Count Chocula.
Of course.
Hell yeah. I like him. He's cool.
So, Laurence, thank you so much for coming on the show. The new album, Death's Hand in Yours, is out. Go check it out if you haven't already. Laurence, anything else you want to shout out?
Yeah, I want to shout out a few amazing bands that everyone should check out. You should check out Hexablot, a great black metal band, makes Witcher-inspired black metal. You should check out the band Moongazer. And you should check out the band Hexenkots. Hexenkots. It's amazing. It's the weirdest shit you've ever heard, and it's amazing. So thank you for having me.
Of course, yes. Thank you so much, and of course, all those bands will be down in the podcast description for people to check out. So make sure, if you haven't done so already, check out the podcast description. See what is down there right now. There's a lot more that you can find. So, Laurence, once again, thanks for coming on the show.
Yes, no problem. Thank you for having me.
All right, that was Laurence Kerboff of Legendarium. The new album is Death's Hand in Yours. You can get it now. It's available anywhere you listen to music, including on the band's Bandcamp. I'll have that linked down in the podcast description, along with the other bands that Laurence was shouting out towards the end there. Definitely worth checking out. I am curious, though, after finishing this interview, I'm curious to know where the sound of Legendarium is going to evolve to next, given just how all over the place it is right now. Now, that's not a bad thing, of course, but I am curious if he is going to make it more cohesive the next time around. I'm curious to know what Laurence decides to keep and what he decides to get rid of for the next outing. Whatever that album comes out, whenever it comes out, whatever it might sound like, I'm sure I'll be surprised either way.
You just listened to MRP, the Metal Robot Podcast.
The Rain of Fire comes back around one last time to close out the show, but before we make haste for the gates, let me quickly tell you what's coming up next week. two bands of completely different stripes, Jaude, a Toronto-based instrumental prog band, and Valkata, a global symphonic metal project. Plus, we'll get into next week's new releases, including Powerwolf and the week's biggest stories. In the meantime, though, thanks for listening to the Metal Robot Podcast. You can follow the show on the internet, YouTube, Metal Robot Reviews, Facebook and Twitter at The Metal Robot, Instagram at @TheMetalRobot. You can also head on over to our hub online, themetalrobot.com, for more. Thanks again to Collin Sterling for coming on the show, Legendarium as well. Glad to have you join us. And of course, to you for listening or watching the show. Hope to have you back soon. I'm Tom McKay. If you enjoyed this episode and you want more, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and I'll see you in the mosh pit next time. Have a good night.